Órale. The radio love oldies, that kind. Órale.
All right, everybody. So we are back with episode number 9 with none other than Mr. Bubbles. I am super excited to have you on our podcast. Thank you so much for being here and being episode number 9. I hope you're excited as I am. How are you?
I am very excited. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast, Crystal Marie and Hector. It's a pleasure, and I'm just excited to talk about cool stuff like records and the music that we like. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let's go ahead and get right into it because I know everybody loves hearing the story. Where were you born and where were you raised?
So I was born just outside of Vancouver, BC, Canada, in a town called Surrey. It's a city, but it's a suburb of Vancouver. About 500,000 people live there. And that's where I was born and raised, and I lived there until I was in my 20s, and lived in the same house, and my parents still live there. So they've been there probably like 50 or 60 years in that same house.
Wow. Yeah. So Canada, you're from Canada. Wow.
Yeah.
How was it? And you were there till you were 20 years old. So how was it growing up in Canada?
Well, it's great. Vancouver is, for those who haven't been there before, it's a really diverse area. Lots of people, lots of immigrants from countries all over. Many languages spoken. So it's a great place to grow up, having friends of all sorts of different backgrounds, and just learning a lot about cultures. And it's a beautiful city. There's like snow, there's like skiing mountains like 20-30 minutes from the downtown area. Yeah, it's really a nice place to grow up. I feel really fortunate to be from there.
What was your environment like growing up in your area?
My environment was sort of like, I guess, a middle class upbringing. I went to school, elementary, middle school, or we call it junior high, and then high school, all in the same little area. And it was a really fun time to grow up. I grew up in the 80s, so I'm in my 40s now. And I look back very fondly at the era of when I grew up, just all the culture and, like music and movies. And it was just a really fun time to be growing up. And I had a park right behind my house where my friends and I, we'd play games and, play army and, and just, run amok and have a lot of fun. And then, just being really close to the schools and being able to be involved with sports.
Did you play sports in school?
I did. I did most of the sports. I did, like baseball, soccer, volleyball, track and field, basketball. Yeah. And then later on in my teenage years, I really got into skateboarding. So then that's when the sport stopped.
Skateboarding.
Yeah.
That was very big, huh? Like around that time?
Oh yeah, early 90s. It was a big thing, and it's sort of if you can think back to your high school experience where there's the cliques and different people are into certain things. The skateboarders are definitely the outcasts, and so we congregated together and hung out together. But we were a little bit considered misfits for sure. At that time, I think skateboarding is a lot more accepted now than it was back then.
At that time, what are some of the challenges that you feel that you face, like just being a skater?
Skateboarders are just kind of frowned upon, and they were kind of a nuisance, and people would always kick us out of, parking lots and, different places, and getting chased by the police and that sort of thing. So, yeah, we definitely had our own style. And, when I look around now at high school, kids, I see them looking just like I did, in the early 90s with the giant baggy clothes. And, and even just like the haircuts and everything, it's all kind of come back.
Right.
The 90s have really come back in a major way. And, it's funny seeing kids who are obviously far too young, to have lived in the 90s, looking just like we did,
I love it. I love seeing, just, I'm sure for you, it's like a nostalgic feeling, to see somebody, that dressed very similar to the way you used to dress or the way you used to look. And I think that's kind of how I feel the same. It's kind of like nostalgic to see that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a good feeling, and it brings back memories. And,
sure.
back then I feel like, I just remember going, to the, Goodwill, the Value Village, the thrift stores, and just trying to find the largest pants I could find, and then buying them for like a couple dollars, taking them home, and then hacking them off with scissors because they were like meant for somebody really, really tall and far bigger.
That's funny.
Somebody with a really small waist, and then we'd get those, if you remember those braided leather belts, where you could kind of like, pick where you want to put the belt, kind of like the army belts,
Yeah, I know.
But in that same kind of style, cinch them up so they're not falling off. But yeah, I think the kids have a lot easier now because I think they make pants and clothes that accommodate the look nowadays.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. I do see what you're saying about that. It's so familiar because I'm laughing because I remember my father, he used to love going to the thrift stores to buy his Stacey Adams and then refurbish them and then make them look glass, like the glass, sign them to where you can see your reflection. Or he would go and buy pants like that, but he used to cut them on the bottom to baby cuff them. So I can relate to that. See that growing up. That's funny. And so for, growing up in Canada and being a skater, what type of music did you grow up listening to in your home?
Well, we didn't really listen to a lot of music, surprisingly, in the house. I think my parents, they had a record collection, and a record player, but I think once they had my sister and I, they kind of just stopped buying music and listening to music. It was sort of strange, but I was obsessed with music ever since I was a little kid, and it was my cousins who kind of turned me on to different things. And I had like a bunch of cousins that were like, maybe like 3 to 5 years older than myself, or even a little bit older. And I'd look up to them, and they listened to heavy metal. So I was all about heavy metal from kindergarten all the way up until I was, I don't know, an adolescent. So like listening to, initially probably listening to like Bon Jovi and, like Poison and like those kind of 80s hair metal bands that were really popular at the time. And then moving on to like, Metallica and Slayer and thrash metal, just to name some bands, before kind of always wanting to hear like the latest thing, and then just wanting to hear something new and fresh. And that was when I started listening more to like death metal. So
what's that? What's death metal? Like more hardcore?
Yeah, it's just you've probably heard it. You know, it's the vocals are usually like more growling or screaming.
Oh,
And
okay.
the music is just a little more heavier. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that in the late 90s, or sorry, in the late 80s and the early 90s is when death metal sort of started to, you know, take shape. And I really was all about it at that time before moving on to listening to other genres. So,
That's
yeah,
dope.
to answer your question, yeah, just in the household, we didn't listen to a lot of music. My parents liked Neil Diamond.
Okay.
They liked Neil Diamond a lot. What else did they like? My dad liked, you know, just like classic rock. He liked like CCR, you know, Creedence Clearwater Revival.
Okay.
You know, The Who. He liked that kind of stuff, but it was really just listening to it in the car when we drove somewhere.
Yeah. So, what do you think, why do you think that you love music so much at such a young age? Like,
I think that we were fortunate, where we grew up. We had this thing called Much Music, and it's like Canada's version of MTV. And so once we got that, like, I think it got added to the cable plan that we had. I just started watching that channel like religiously, and it just was like a lot of exposure to all different sorts of styles of music. And they had TV shows that were specific to genres of music. So they had like a hip hop show, they had like a metal show, they had a R&B show, they had like I think they had a techno show, they had pop music. They just had like everything you could imagine, and you just watch music videos, and then, you know, you'd be impressionable and see something or hear something that really, you know, like strikes you, and then you could just go down to the shopping mall and just buy it, you know. So it was exciting.
Yeah, that's cool to know that in Canada they had, you know, something similar to like MTV that would expose, you know, people to, you know, that's cool that they had, like, how you saying, like, rock had his own show. It was every genre, they had their own show on TV.
They did, yeah. And
so cool.
They would have like American artists come on, and, you know, either be interviewed or they would perform. And they would always say, "Wow, you guys actually play music." Back home, in the States, MTV, they just stopped playing music, and now it's just a bunch of reality shows or various, you know, other kind of programming. So that was like kind of a point of pride that Much Music, which is based in Toronto, they would, you know, do a really good job with their programming and have good shows for us to watch.
That's so cool. So I know you said you lived in Canada until you were 20. How old? So where'd you go after that? After you were 20, you left Canada? Where'd you go?
I was involved in playing in bands. So I got into playing music in my teenage years, and part of doing that was you know, traveling around and touring in a hardcore punk band. And when that sort of kind of ran its course, I ended up meeting a woman who lives in a town called Bellingham, and Bellingham is really actually pretty close to the Canadian border in Washington. And so we ended up having a lot of mutual friends, and we were also interested in the same sort of music. And so we ended up dating, and she was in school to get her master's, and we kind of talked about if she wanted to move up to Canada or if I was going to maybe move to the United States. So we kind of chose the second option, and that's how I ended up kind of coming down to the United States. We ended up getting married.
That's so cool. So
yeah.
Did you guys have like a long distance relationship for a little bit, or?
Well, no, actually it's kind of funny because if you look at where we lived, we're about a 45-minute drive.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, and I always joke that, you know, for me to go downtown Vancouver, it's like an hour. But for me to, like, cross the border and to go, you know, go see my girlfriend at the time, it was, you know, about the same time. So it was kind of funny. We were in a relationship. We were in two different countries. So we had to do something about it. The border kind of got to be a hassle after a while. And
I'm
we
sure.
simplified things now. So, yeah.
That's awesome. So you're here. You're in, where are you at? Washington. You're in Washington.
So,
that's real cool.
Yeah. So we're in a place called Anacortes, and it's just right as you exit to go to the San Juan Islands. And if you can imagine where Seattle is, you can imagine where Vancouver, BC is. It's sort of in the middle, and it's right on the water. It's very pretty. So we have
so cool.
We have a view of the water, and it's like a small town, but it's just a really pleasant place to live, and we have family here. So we just moved here. I don't know if you want to talk about where I've been before, but we did move here about a year ago, and we did live in Portland, Oregon. That was where we were for about 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then before that we lived in Long Beach, California.
Oh, okay. So you were in LA for a minute.
For a short time. Yep.
How long were you there for?
It was about a year and a half.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
How'd you like the culture?
Well, I mean, I think the culture, like, definitely made a lasting impression because living down there for the short time that I did, you know, kind of like exposed me to some new things, you know, as far as music goes. And that's kind of like where I learned about, you know, soul music and, you know, the things that I'm interested in more now than before. So it was a great time of my life. We joke about it. We say it was a long vacation because we moved down there kind of knowing that for us to be able to afford to buy a home, it might not be possible, but we rented and we were about three blocks from the beach, and we basically paid all of our money towards our rent and had very little money left over. But it was a beautiful place to live in Long Beach.
I'm sure it was a beautiful experience. And that's good that you said that, because that's actually was going to be my next question was, how were you introduced to oldies, being that you were such a rock fanatic? Like, you even played in a band. How were you introduced?
So I think that I kind of like discovered oldies while we were in Southern California. We were driving around a lot. I feel like we were going everywhere. We were all over, you know, Orange County and up in LA and, you know, Inland Empire, like Riverside. We were just all over the place going to, you know, different things. And we would be listening to the radio, and every once in a while we would hear Art LeBeau. And that was kind of like where I started hearing some of these songs, and you know, then hearing the dedications and kind of picking up on, you know, that these songs that were being dedicated to the people, they hold a lot of significance, and they're like treasured songs in their family or partnerships. And so I started you know, kind of making a point to, you know, turn the radio on whenever Art LeBeau was on, you know, rest in peace. But, yeah, his show definitely, was kind of the gateway, for me, in listening to that kind of stuff. And then after that, I discovered that a lot of those songs that I heard on the radio were on the East Side Story, records. And that was kind of something that I looked into. I wanted to buy the records, the LPs, but I think that there was a barrier to entry, like with the cost of it. And I think that as like a option B was to kind of actually just seek out the songs on the original labels on 45. So what I ended up doing is I just basically made a list of all the songs from the East Side Story collection compilation, and just started carrying a list around with me. And then when I would go into the record store, I would pull the list out, and then I would be able to kind of, jog my memory. Oh, I want to look for, this Billy Stewart song, or, whatever it was, the Moments or something. And I would have the name of the song, because it's so much information, like, if it's all at once and it's something new to you. If you grew up with it, that's one thing, if your family said, oh yeah, this is this record, and you've heard it your whole life. But for me, it was like a new thing, and it's not that long ago. So I was just kind of learning all the stuff at once, and I would take the list and kind of go to the record stores and then try to find some of these singles, and thankfully they were all a lot more affordable if you bought them individually, which I'd buy them for like a couple bucks.
Yeah. Do you remember the first song that you heard on the radio that turned you on? Like, okay, what is this?
Jeez, I don't know if I can think of anything. I think instead of a specific record or song, I just remember hearing the doo-wop. That some of those doo-wop songs, the common oldies that I would hear on Art LeBeau, and just remember thinking, oh, well, I've heard doo-wop before, but I've heard this really like kind of happy, upbeat, high tempo doo-wop that didn't really appeal to me. But then when I heard these like kind of like slower, more, melancholy, sad songs, it kind of, struck a chord with me. So it was the doo-wop that definitely like, was the allure before I got into, more soul. So I definitely have an appreciation for the doo-wop stuff. I do buy it now periodically, and I think it should be, something that people definitely check out if they haven't already.
Yeah, I wasn't really into doo-wop, but recently I came across doo-wop, but it has that like rare soul sound. I don't know what the song is. I forget. I always forget. I think I have it on my Spotify playlist, but I was like, hey, I could do this doo-wop.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the thing about it is there's a lot of similarities to the rare soul kind of stuff that we listen to with the doo-wop. A lot of the tempos are the same, and if you're listening to group harmony, doo-wop is group harmony, right? So there's a lot of, I feel like it's like kind of the foundation for where soul went, in the, I'm no expert, but, in the late 60s, I think things started to change a bit, from the, the early soul R&B, and doo-wop into more of a soul that, we resonate with. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I agree to that. So do you feel like, before moving to California, in Canada, did you ever know about oldies, like that the genre existed, or?
Oh yeah, I definitely did. I had a few like Temptations records, some Smokey Robinson records, but I think it was just a type of music that I didn't really give a fair shake to, and I think in the age now of technology and having streaming and YouTube, you don't have to take a risk anymore when checking something out music-wise. It's so easy just to look something up and and be a sponge. And so I think now more than ever, you can explore something that you've never heard before, and become a fan of something. I remember when I was a kid, like you'd save about $20, and then you go buy the CD or the tape that you wanted, and you'd have to make a very, very careful decision what you wanted to buy, because once you buy it, you're probably not going to be able to return it.
Right.
So it's a different era, and I think that it's really a great time just to check out anything.
Right.
There's no stakes,
That is true. That's very true. I mean, Spotify, YouTube, everything, Apple Music, you could listen to anything or explore different genres, right, of music because of technology today.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I said absolutely.
Yeah. So were you always into collecting vinyl, or you got into collecting vinyl because you were in search of, that music that you heard on the radio? Why not like CDs or, just streaming online? Like, what motivated you to say, I'm going to go get the vinyl? I'm going to go get the wax?
It goes back quite a ways, because when I was a teenager and, got my allowance money or whatever it was, we would go down to downtown and go to the record store. And if you bought an LP, it would be about $6 less than buying the CD. And so you'd get the LP. It's, obviously far larger. The artwork is going to be, bigger for you to see. And, not to mention you got this cool, piece of wax. So it was more or less just a cost issue initially. So I started buying records probably in maybe the mid-90s, 95, 96 is probably when I started buying records. But I didn't collect records. I would make the distinction that I wasn't collecting records. I was just buying something new or something used that I liked. When it comes to collecting, that I think that's a little bit more specific to searching high and low for something that is more hard to find, and looking for something that's in a specific condition or on the original label. So that didn't come until I started buying soul music. So maybe 8-10 years ago, and that's
Right.
when I started collecting vinyl. So I've had most of my life where I would buy vinyl, but a lot of those records were brand new and sealed,
Right. And so your passion, do you feel like the passion for Rare Soul, that started when you moved to California? Now, there is a difference, right? Just for those that are tuning in that maybe aren't so experienced with oldies. So there's your common oldies, and then there's your Rare Soul, hard to find oldies. Where you come from listening to Art LeBeau, which usually would play more common oldies, when did you get into the Rare Soul type of search?
It all sort of happened pretty quickly, because once I started listening to the common oldies, I was snooping around online, and I came across the radio show Lowrider Sundays.
Okay, with Moni.
With Moni Loca and Lil Smiley.
Yeah.
Out of San Diego. And
shout out to Moni Loca.
Yeah. She's great.
That's mighty. Yes.
She's great. So that radio show, for those who aren't familiar, it was, I think, weekly and maybe bi-weekly, and then they kind of scaled it back. But they would have, it's a similar sort of thing to what we're doing. We're talking about origin story and where you're from and that kind of thing. But they would have people come on and bring records, seasoned collectors, and then people that just, have, 10 records in their box that they want to come, play, and people that were, that never played records out in public, anywhere. They were like really gracious, and they would invite people down to their studio, and so I started listening to those shows, and I became like hooked on it, and every episode you'd hear something fantastic, and so I would try to make a point to figure out who was that artist, and if I could reach out to somebody, or get the track listing or whatever, and then just make a note. And I think that's kind of where where I started listening to I guess Rare Soul, but to me it was just soul, because I didn't know if we were listening to an expensive, hard to find record, if we were listening to something that was mass released and is the B-side to a hit song that we all know. So it was all kind of new to me, and I think that I owe a lot of gratitude to Moni Loca for sure, for just being really humble and being really like gracious to to her guests, and just bringing so much great music to everybody who got to listen to that show. And I think they still do the show, but I think it's it's a few years past them doing it regularly, and I think Lil Smiley moved away. But for anyone who isn't familiar, there is archives, and so go back and listen to the archives, and there's so many great episodes of wonderful music to check out.
So for those that never heard, do you know how they can look up the archives, just so that they can go and look them up?
Well, I believe they have, I think there's social media for Lowrider Sundays. They have a Facebook, they have an Instagram, and I believe they have their archive on MixCloud, and then, was it SoundCloud? One of those. And if you can't find it, I'm sure you can easily send Moni Loca a message. Just ask, can you tell me where to listen to the episodes? There's got to be like 100 episodes that you could listen to or something. There's a lot, and
wow.
There's a lot of really good ones. So check it out. Yeah.
I love Moni Loca. I know she was actually, my husband knew her before. I met her because of my husband. They were very good friends, and I was introduced to her by him, and she was such a sweetheart from the gate. So,
yeah. She's just like she is on the radio. I got to meet her because she came up to Portland. We invited her up to play records in Portland, and she's such a sweetheart, and we're very fortunate to know her. So I send her love. Hopefully she gets that all kind of sorted out and is back to spinning records and going out and hanging out.
We need her. Yes, I know. I did reach out to her, and I was like, I have to have you on, and as soon as she gets better, she'll be on here.
Yeah.
But yes, much love. Be sure to send your prayers if you're listening. Please cover her with your prayers. And we need her out here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's awesome. That's awesome. So that's how you got into Rare Soul, because of Lowrider Oldies. That's so dope. And so, do you remember the first record of soul that you went and purchased?
I think it was probably, I think it was one of the East Side Story records, but it was a bootleg. I know it's been bootlegged a few times,
wow.
But I was in Portland, and I went into Clinton Records. It's a really great record store in Portland. Shout out Max Bass, he's the owner. I went in there and talked. I was just talking to him. He's one of those record store owners who's like, "What are you looking for?" and you just kind of tell him, and he's like, cool, let me help you. And he just like pulls out titles. And I told him, I'm like kind of looking for, that kind of stuff, the, like late 60s soul, kind of stuff. And he grabbed, that East Side Stories, I think it's volume 5, bootleg, LP, and handed that to me. And then I think he had a Sonny and the Sunliners, reissue maybe. And he said, yeah, here's the other thing that I got. And this guy is like a wealth of knowledge. And so he said to me, oh, if you're into this stuff, you should come back, later tonight, because across the street, there's going to be like a bar night where some people are going to be playing oldies, this kind of stuff that you're looking at. And
wow.
I didn't know that anybody in Portland like was hip to that kind of stuff, because I never saw anyone like spinning, soul, slower soul, at any bars. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm definitely coming back. And so, at the end of, after work, I came back and, went across the street, and it was their first night. A couple dudes that were, spinning records. And so I went in there and just kind of checked it out, and they were actually playing a lot of the stuff that I was familiar with, but also a bunch of stuff that I'd never heard before. And,
wow.
and one of the guys, his name's Chris, him and I became friends. And so, I introduced myself, and I started going every week. I think they did it every week, and I would go there and hang out with him and just kind of nerd out. And he would show me, this record and that record, and we just talk about, where the group's from, and, when this record came out, and just kind of like nerd out over all the details. And I think that was where I got hooked on, this kind of music. And so, Chris is, in Portland there, Chris Beaches. So, he has a radio show, on X-Ray FM, where he plays that kind of music, but he also plays just all sorts of great music. So, check out, Beaches on X-Ray FM if you, are looking for something. And he has great guests too. He had, just a couple days ago, he had Siggs the Storyteller.
Okay.
He's, a really, really, heavy collector. He's got, just amazing stuff. So, yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
I don't know if you want me to go on about that, but, there's lots to say about, where that friendship kicked off,
Sure. If you want to talk about it, we got time.
So what was great was, I cut hair for a living. I'm a barber, and I had a customer, who was the owner, of a bar, and he said, hey, you're into music, right? And I said, well, yeah, I guess so. And he said, we need somebody, to come up and spin records at the bar. And I was like so excited that he asked me. And so Chris and I, we kind of started our own thing. The other gentleman that was doing that night with Chris, he ended up moving away. So there was kind of like maybe like a hole in Portland for oldies. So we started our own thing, and it was probably in 2018 or 19 that we started, and we had a monthly night up in Portland there, and we'd play just all that great music, and it was a lot of fun. And I kind of circling back to Moni Loca. Moni Loca was one of the people that we reached out to and asked to be our guest. And I just wanted to show her, gratitude. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be, spinning records and buying, oldies and all that kind of stuff. So we had her, and we had a few different other guests. We had April, who she lived in the Bay Area, and now she's down in Riverside. And then we had Dennis. He goes by from Anaheim. He's in Orange County. So we had a group of guests over the few years that we did it. I think we finished it last year, just because I ended up moving away. But it was such a fun time, and I think like sort of bringing back kind of like a little bit of the punk rock, DIY aesthetic. It helped a little bit, just printing off flyers and going and hand billing and putting posters up on the wall, going to the record stores and just trying to get the word out. And then, like talking to car clubs and, people that, with the music would resonate with them, and just kind of letting them know, hey, that we have a night here in Portland. If you didn't know, come check it out. And, it's just a good feeling when you see all these people come and they're just, the look on their face, they're like, oh, this song, this takes me back, or this song is like, oh man, I can't believe you have this record. I wish I had this one. It's such a gem. So it was just a really good feeling to have a place to do that, and I feel grateful for that.
Yeah, for sure. So you were working when the first time that they asked you that you were invited to go spin?
Well, so the first time I spun records was probably with Chris, and he kind of just showed me how to do everything. Of course I had my own record player at home, but I never had two record players, let alone a mixer. And he kind of took me under his wing and kind of, showed me how to cue a record and, how to not screw it up. So, yeah, he definitely was a big help, getting me kind of like, comfortable playing records in front of people. And, so he showed me how to do it, and, I had to be really careful, obviously, because, I was using his needles. So if anyone knows about the needles that people play records on, those things, the cartridges, they cost about $300 for just one of them. So you got to be really careful. You don't want to just drop the needle on the anywhere and just let it scrape along the bottom there. So
right, exactly. So do you remember the first time that you got invited to go spin at an event or for something like that?
Well, we kind of ended up doing a lot of the stuff. We kind of like were the ones that were organizing in Portland, Chris and I. So we kind of did that, just organizing it ourselves. But I did get invited periodically to go play other places, like come up to Seattle, and then up now that I live up in Washington, I've been invited to play up in Vancouver. So I have a friend that was actually a bandmate of mine who he really got into soul music, but he got really into more of the the northern, like, upbeat kind of soul music. And he has a night in Vancouver that he did for a really long time called Burning Heart Soul Club.
Okay.
And it was really successful, and they had a lot of people come out. But he does enjoy the same kind of the slower stuff too. He collects that stuff, and he's a really good friend, and we were friends forever. So we actually kind of started playing records together periodically. We have like kind of an unofficial date where we meet up every 4 months to play up there in Vancouver and spin oldies up there. So it's exciting.
And do you guys get like a big crowd out there, like for that?
Well, it's sort of a mixed bag, because like it's not really like the stuff that we play. We play the the sweet soul stuff. It's not really popular there, but there definitely is a contingent of people that are interested that come out. It's kind of hard to say who's there for the music or who's there, just to hang out. You don't always get people coming up and saying, oh, I love this song or I love this record. But I think in Portland, there was definitely more of a a connection with California. California being sort of the ground zero for this kind of stuff. So a lot of people either lived in California or from California that live in Portland. So a lot of crossover there.
Right. That's so cool. What do you feel inspires you to keep collecting vinyl or rare soul? Like, what do you think it because a lot of people, they could buy CDs, they can buy, now online, right? How you say online. But why do you feel that you have made it your mission, to go and seek out vinyl?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons why I do it. I think it's a bit of a thrill of the hunt. You discover a song or a record, and it's just something that captivates you. It's such a great song, but then oh, this thing's going to be hard to find, and you look high and low, and years pass, and somebody has a copy of it, or you find it in a dusty box somewhere, and it's like, haha, I finally found it. It's kind of the thrill of the chase, and then it feels good to own it if it's its original label on the the label that first came out on. And it's just like an artifact a little bit, It's, of course, it's about the song, but it feels good to own it for yourself. And even though the money, that you're spending now isn't going to the artist necessarily, at least it's an authentic version of the record, and not just somebody trying to make a quick buck by pressing it now,
True. That's awesome to know that, there's individuals like yourself that feel that collecting vinyl is almost like an art. How did you say it? An artifact? Like a...
Yeah. I mean, it's like a little treasure, like the thing with these records is so many of them, the ones that we're talking about now, like, a lot of these records, it was an artist that got signed. They might have got signed for $145. They recorded it. It didn't do well. It didn't chart. It was considered not a success. The record label pressed, maybe a promo or maybe a promo and a regular edition of it, and then they never pressed it again, and they said, all right, well, that wasn't, that's not going anywhere. And a lot of these records just kind of sat somewhere, in basements, and some of them are just like, it never played, pristine copies, but, they're hidden, and, people like us, we have to kind of, search high and low and look for, people that have a bunch of records that they want to get rid of, even going to estate sales, or yard sales.
Yeah.
Sometimes you find amazing records there just because it was grandpa's, record collection that he hasn't touched in years. And, the kids are just like, well, these aren't worth anything.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
that happened to me. Exactly. That's exactly what happened to me. I was sharing the other day that my father, I remember I don't know how old I was, but I was a little girl, and I was cleaning out our room, and he had like 2 crates and I remember now, I know that they were the East Side Story. He had the whole collection. And I remember I was cleaning it out and I was like, Dad, this isn't even in style anymore. There's CDs. And and he was like, are you sure? Are you sure? I was like, yeah, Dad, like all this, you could get it on CDs. Like we don't even, I think like our record player had like, I don't even think we had a record player at that time. And I put them out in the front of the house and somebody came up on them. And now I'm like, oh, I'm so dumb. Why did I do that?
Yeah, and now you could have sold them if you wanted, but you could have sold them for a hefty penny if you were hard up for some cash.
But I mean, I think now it's more like the sentimental value that my father, you know what I mean, for that,
Sure.
But it was just heartbreaking. So I know what that's exactly like. People don't know the value of it, of records, like, what do they say? Every man's trash is another man's treasure. That's just the truth. That's why I say it's your trash, but my treasure,
Yeah.
Out of your whole collection, what do you feel is your best, like your favorite record that you have of Versal?
Oh, well, is it a rare song? Maybe not, but it's one that I take with me. I put in the box every time I go play records somewhere. Lay Your Head on My Shoulder, Bill Robinson and the Quails.
Okay.
That song, it does it for me. It's fantastic, but it's got horns and it's just got a beautiful melody. Love that song. So that I never get tired of that one, and I have to play it every time I play records. Just even at home, I put it on all the time, so it gets a lot of mileage for me.
That's so cool. And my last question, as we get ready to wrap up our interview, is what is the best advice that you can give the next generation of record collectors?
Advice I would say is, record collecting can be expensive, and I think some people feel like it's daunting to get into record collecting. But I think that there's really great music for everybody's budget, and I think that we can chase the same 100 records for the next 20 years. But if you just bring a little portable record player with you to a record store, just do what I did. Just sit on the floor and just take records out of a dusty box and just drop the needle on it. You'll find something that you love, and you'll be shocked that it's 50 cents. So that'd be my advice, is that there's just great music, and there's so many people out there that want to share their music, and we're really fortunate to have people that are just kind of uncovering songs that are long lost and forgotten. That's my advice.
Sure, that's awesome. Yeah, I think I shared this before that I didn't get into collecting vinyl until I was already probably like my mid-20s. But that's how I started. I started by going to an old antique store up in Sacramento. And they had like this antique store had a lot of 45s. They had a lot of 45s. And I think it was an antique store, so that was its own booth, and I would do that. I would take my little record player, sit down, and just go through the 45s and YouTube. I was like, wait, hold on, this is, let me look real quick. Let me, and how you say, I love how you said there's a song for every budget, right? And you don't let price intimidate you. I know that's like the biggest thing that I always hear. It's like, it's so expensive. But I always say it's like an investment that you're making. You know what I mean? Yes, it may be a little bit pricey, but it's an investment.
Yeah, I mean, I got a record recently, that I got for a, what I would call a steal, but it's a very pricey record, and my wife said, well, we might have to sell this one. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And does your wife,
right?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Put my kid through college, I might have to unload some records.
Is your wife into it as well?
She's into it, but she's kind of periphery. She basically gets hooked onto the songs that I obsess over. I'll have like a song that I play, I'm like, I really got to find a copy of this one, and then I play it only 50 times for and then she's like, oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, go ahead, buy that one. So.
Oh, that's cool. And, I mean, it's always cool to have somebody that like supports, your passion. So that's cool that she supports you in that.
She's definitely supportive, for sure.
Yeah, that's important. Well, I mean, if people want to know more about you or, shoot you a DM with questions, where can we find you?
Well, I'm on Instagram, MrxBubbles. And then I'm sure I'm linked to, the post that you guys make. So if you can find me through there. Shoot me a DM. Like, I just want to say, the people that, I spoke to over the last, 8 to 10 years, in like California and various places, they were so kind and took the time to, kind of, talk records with me, and I love the correspondence. So, yeah, definitely shoot me a DM and let's chat about records, because it's definitely a cool thing to reach out to people about that. So, yeah, that's where you can reach me.
Yes, definitely. That's awesome. Well, Mr. Bubbles, I want to thank you so much for giving me your time and just doing the interview, and just getting to know you more. I think it's so cool, just hearing everybody's story, how everybody got started. I definitely was a breath of fresh air hearing your story, coming from growing up in Canada. So I had such a great time. Thank you so much. And any last words?
I just want to say, appreciate the having me on and keep the podcast up. I'm a proud supporter of your podcast, and I hope to hear many episodes in the future, and hopefully we cross paths next time I'm down in California.
Definitely. And we have, I before the interview we were talking, I was letting them know that we're actually booked out all the way until the first week of September. And we're working already on the second week. So we have a lot of upcoming dope interviews with dope people. And I'm so happy and so proud that you were part of our podcast. So again, thank you so much. And that does conclude episode number 9 here on the Barrio Lavodi podcast. And with that being said, we'll see you on the next time.